At the beginning of our videos, we always shout out Instagram and Patreon, and I'm sure you guys aren't totally sick of that, right? Well, today's the turn of Twitter. We currently use it to share all of the articles from our website to make sure you don't miss anything, but we want to know how you'd like to see us use Twitter more in the future. Tweet us your suggestions and drop us a follow. It's at TLDR News UK. Due to the ongoing developments in this story, there have been 8 different versions of this script. The draft was finalised at 10 PM on the 20th of March. All information was correct at the time of recording. So a lot happened yesterday. May wrote a letter to Donald Tusk, Tusk responded to May, and May made a public statement. Before we get to that, let's have a quick recap of what happened last week. Because if you've been paying attention at all, you'll know that the fast pace of Brexit hasn't been limited the last couple of days. Last week, a hell of a lot happened in Parliament. They voted to reject May's deal and then 2 days later voted in favour of requesting an extension to Article 50.
Order! Order!
The ayes to the right, 412. The noes to the left, 202.
Theresa May was hoping to react to this defeat by holding a third vote on her deal, hoping with the Brexit deadline now just 8 days away, more moderate MPs would soften to her deal in fear of a no-deal alternative. However, this all changed at the beginning of the week when the Speaker, John Bercow, threw out May's deal because it was not substantially different from the deal they rejected last week.
Order. I wish to make a statement to the House. The 24th edition of Erskine May states that, and I quote, a motion or an amendment which is the same in substance as a question which has been decided during a session may not be brought forward again during that same session. Whether the second motion is substantially the same as the first is finally a matter for the judgment of the chair. What the government cannot legitimately do is to resubmit to the House the same proposition or substantially the same proposition as that of last week, which was rejected by 149 votes.
With the clock ticking and the option of bringing the same vote back again off the table, it seems almost inevitable that the Prime Minister will need an extension regardless of her plans going forward. That's something we've been saying a lot on this channel. The UK will need to get an extension, and you guys are very often telling us, no, they have to apply for an extension. And who's to say that the EU will definitely grant it? So today we're going to address that. First of all, let's answer the most basic question. Why does the UK need to ask for an extension? Well, Article 50 is the document the UK is actually going to be amending, and it's an international treaty. By invoking it initially, the UK bound themselves to the rules set out in the article. Those rules state that the UK must leave the European Union on March 29th unless they ask to make the relevant changes to Article 50. To make changes, they'll need the approval from all of those who signed it, meaning an extension won't be granted unless everyone agrees to it. That's all 27 remaining EU countries. Earlier this week, Michel Barnier, chief negotiator for the EU, said that he wouldn't allow the UK an extension unless they had a concrete plan which laid out what they planned to do with it. So what reasons would the UK need to give to satisfy the EU? Well, yesterday, the 20th of March, Theresa May released a letter to Tusk which went some way to answering this question. She also spoke directly to the nation to discuss her plans.
Nearly 3 years have passed since the public voted to leave the European Union. I came to office on a promise to deliver on that verdict. MPs have been unable to agree on a way to implement the UK's withdrawal. As a result, we will now not leave on time with a deal on the 29th of March. This delay is a matter of great personal regret for me. And of this I am absolutely sure. You want this stage of the Brexit process to be over and done with. I agree. I am on your side. It is now time for MPs to decide. So today I have written to Donald Tusk, the President of the European Council, to request a short extension of Article 50 up to the 30th of June to give MPs the time to make a final choice. Do they want to leave the EU with a deal which delivers on the result of the referendum, that takes back control of our money, borders and laws while protecting jobs and our national security? Do they want to leave without a deal? Or do they not want to leave at all, causing potentially irreparable damage to public trust? And I will continue to work night and day to secure the support of my colleagues, the DUP and others for this deal. But I am not prepared to delay Brexit any further than the 30th of June.
The speech in the letter included her plans for going forward and the kind of extension she was looking for. May's letter to Donald Tusk begins by laying out what's happened so far, the basic things we've explained already. The fact that the House of Commons did not vote in favour of the deal. The following day they voted against leaving without a negotiated deal. The day after, it supported a government motion which proposed a short extension to the Article 50 period. Then she states that she'd intended to bring back the vote to the House of Commons this week, but then tells the EU that it wasn't possible due to the Speaker saying that the agreement would need to be fundamentally different, not different in terms of wording, but different in terms of substance. So she asked the European Council to approve the supplementary documents that President Juncker and I agreed in Strasbourg. She's hoping that with these additional changes in place, the deal might be different enough to be allowed back on the floor of the House. If the EU accept the extension, she says that she's confident that Parliament will proceed to ratify the deal constructively. May finishes the statement by saying that in our legal system, the government will need to take the bill through both houses of Parliament to enact our commitments under the withdrawal agreement into domestic law. While we'll consult with the opposition in the usual way to plan the passage of the bill as quickly and smoothly as possible, the timetable is inevitably uncertain at this stage. Then she actually puts forward the request for the extension. I'm therefore writing to inform the European Council that the UK is seeking an extension to the Article 50 period until the 30th of June 2019. I'd be grateful for the opportunity to set out this position to our colleagues on Thursday. However, not everyone is keen on this plan. In fact, possibly the most important person isn't that keen on it. Donald Tusk responded to May's letter, saying that the EU would only approve the short extension May asked for if MPs first agreed to her deal. This makes some sense, as a short extension is only really enough time to iron out the technicalities of the deal, and not long enough to begin renegotiating. Therefore, to enter into a short extension without a deal signed off is a recipe for disaster. This has been made even more difficult by Michel Barnier, who said that a short extension could only be until the 23rd of May, unless the UK wants to take part in the European elections. Tusk said that another EU summit could be held next week to allow the Prime Minister time to make changes to get the deal to the House again. It's worth noting that while Tusk was basically trying to tell MPs that they only have a short extension if they vote for May's deal, he didn't explicitly rule out a long extension, although he did talk about Brexit fatigue. So what's the plan now? Well, Bercow might have dashed May's dreams for a third meaningful vote this week, but that doesn't mean it can never happen. May's planning to hold meaningful vote number 3 before the emergency EU summit at the end of the week. This means that the vote will be incredibly close to the UK's exit date, currently set as the 29th of March. If MPs vote to support May's deal during the third vote, then the EU will grant the UK the short extension, allowing the UK and the EU a couple of extra months to enact the deal. May's plan is to threaten MPs with the prospect of a no deal, until they buckle and vote for her deal. However, this is looking less and less likely. Although May claimed that she would have brought the deal to Parliament this week if it wasn't for that meddling Speaker, this probably isn't true. All this week and last, she's been working to try and strike a deal with the DUP. She thought that if she could get the DUP on side, then some of the ERG would join her too. However, her attempts to get them on side weren't enough for the DUP, because despite her promises, any new Brexiteer Prime Minister could just revoke them. This is why May hasn't brought her deal back this week anyway. She knew that she couldn't persuade the DUP. She definitely didn't have the numbers to get it over the line last time, and not much has changed since then, so she's pretty unlikely to get it through. Even though most MPs are worried about a no deal, they either don't think that it will happen, or hate May's deal so much they'll still refuse to vote for it. Therefore, if MPs vote against May's deal for a third time, then the EU says that they won't accept the UK's request for a short deadline extension. This means that unless some alternate arrangement is reached, the deadline will stay as the 29th of March, and the UK will leave without a deal next Friday. For this to happen, Parliament will have definitely ruled out May's deal, as well as no deal and a short extension. This only leaves a long extension.
Some argue that I'm making the wrong choice, and I should ask for a longer extension to the end of the year or beyond, to give more time for politicians to argue over the way forward. That would mean asking you to vote in European elections nearly 3 years after our country decided to leave. What kind of message would that send? Now, you want us to get on with it. And that is what I am determined to do.
It's also unclear if the EU would accept a longer extension. Tusk doesn't sound too keen, and French President Macron has said that he'll veto the request for an extension if there's no clear plan to go along with it. This leaves the UK with a last resort, revoking Article 50, which it can do without the EU's permission. However, in a meeting with other party leaders last night, May refused to say that she'd revoke Article 50 to avoid a no deal, and instead suggested that Parliament could hold indicative votes to show their majority support for some option. While this might make the French less likely to veto their request for an extension, depending on when May decides to hold the third meaningful vote, there might not be enough time left for indicative votes. There's still a good chance that the EU could agree to a longer extension or go back on their policy of only offering a short extension with a deal, but it's all anything but certain. If the EU didn't agree to an extension and May refused to revoke Article 50, technically, Parliament could trigger a no-confidence vote, and then a temporary government of national unity, propped up by a cross-party parliamentary majority of Remain MPs, could then revoke Article 50. As you can see, Brexit is just as confusing as ever, and with only 8 days left to go, it doesn't appear to be getting any clearer. Remember to subscribe to be notified when all of our videos come out. Following us across our other social accounts means you'll never miss a thing, and you'll be notified when any of our videos or articles come out. You can find us by simply searching for TLDR News.